Hi, this is my second black tea that I'm going to make. This is called Georgian Imperial. It's a blend of Darjeeling and Keemun teas. Keemun teas coming from China and the Darjeeling teas coming from India, the northern part of India, near the foothills of the Himalayas. Darjeeling, as you know, is very famous, and this is not a first flush tea, nor is it a second flush tea, but it is still a very, very high quality tea. Now, I will I will talk about Darjeeling teas when I do a segment on Darjeeling teas, but suffice to say that this is a good Darjeeling tea, um, made in between the two seasons, not the autumn season nor the spring season, but somewhere in between. But a time when there has been no rain, because rain is a spoiler for the flavor. And we have uh, the uh, the blending is done here. We do the blending right here with the Keemun and the Darjeeling tea. What am I going to use? How much of tea do you think I should use? Now, in my earlier segment, I spoke about black teas being made with 2 grams of tea for 8 ounces of water. So this pot is 16 ounces. This is again one of those glass teapots that we have on our website. It's a 16 ounce conventional glass teapot. It's available on our website. The Darjeeling tea is also available on our website in 4 ounce packets, or in a tin if you prefer that way. Now, looking at the Darjeeling tea, this video won't give you a very good picture of it, but let me try. Yeah, it's not easy to get a good frame of this. It's a medium-sized tea. It's a medium-sized tea with well-rolled black tea particles, and also there is tip in it. Tip is the small buds that appear in loose leaf teas when the rolling is appropriately done. The buds are preserved in the rolling process. So the Darjeeling teas usually have buds in them. So there is a certain amount of buds in this tea because it has Darjeeling and Keemun teas together. I'm going to use 4 grams of tea because this pot is 16 ounces, and I'm going to measure out exactly 4 ounces, 4 grams. That would be sufficient for this pot. Okay, and gently put that in. All right, so we have 4 grams of tea in there, and I'm going to use 195-degree water. The reason I'm not using water that is usually used for black tea is because this is not a traditional black tea per se, because it has Darjeeling. Now, Darjeeling, when I talk about the Darjeeling teas, I will emphasize on this, but Darjeeling teas are not fully oxidized teas. And depending on whether it's a first flush tea or a second flush tea or a autumnal tea or anything in between, none of those are fully oxidized. When I say fully oxidized, that's 100%. These are about 70 to 80% oxidized. So they fall into the category of an oolong tea actually, because an oolong tea is a semi-oxidized tea. So, but it's never called an oolong tea. It's always called a Darjeeling. The Keemun, on the other hand, is fully oxidized. So we could brew the Keemun at even at 200 degrees or even 205 degrees because it's a traditional black tea from China. But because there is a component of Darjeeling tea in this, we have to reduce the temperature and treat it in that manner. So 195 degrees is what this temperature is. And I'm going to fill the pot so that we have 16 ounces of water in it. You have to be a little careful about filling the pot because sometimes it can overflow. You do it gently, unlike the smaller the grades are, it's easy to block the openings of inside the tea infuser. Okay, so here we are, 16 ounces, and I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes. I can safely do that, although it's a Darjeeling, and there are certain Darjeelings that I would only steep for 3 minutes. But this Darjeeling is, as I said, it's not a first flush, nor is it a second flush. So I can treat it the normal way, and I will do a 5-minute brewing time, steeping time. All right. Now let me tell you about this blend. The reason I decided to do this blend, I have had this for a long time now, probably more than 15 years. The reason I decided to do this blend was quite by accident, actually. I had some good quality Keemun teas, and when I tasted it, it had the traditional China black tea taste, but it also had a brilliant color. It has a nice color. Keemun teas have a burgundy color. They are called the burgundy of teas. Now, I thought to myself, what if I use this characteristic burgundy color and add some flavor to it? It would certainly enhance the tea by itself. So what I did was, I thought maybe I should use a Ceylon because there are some very good high quality Ceylon teas, but I wanted to go one step further. I thought, let's try a Darjeeling tea. And I did add some Darjeeling tea to the Keemun, and I brewed my first pot of tea, and wow, it really hit me. It was an excellent cup of tea. It had a flavor of Darjeeling tea with the color and bouquet of the Keemun teas, and I thought this is going to be great. So I then played around with the percentages, and then came up with the right percentage, which I thought was ideal for this particular Darjeeling and for this particular Keemun tea. Now, the Darjeeling tea that I used was from Namring Estate, which is in Darjeeling district, which is again at the foothills of the Himalayas. So it's way up north when you consider India as a whole. During January and February, December, January, February, those tea lands go into dormancy because it's too cold for the tea leaves to grow, and there is no production during that time. But in in March, with spring arrival, little buds start to emerge from the tea bushes, and then it grows, and then you have the first harvest, which is called the first flush, and that's a limited amount of tea because it's still growing, and the bushes are not fully recovered from winter. but they make some excellent teas. The second harvest is called the second flush tea, and that also produces very, very nice teas, excellent teas. A little bit more muscatel in taste, a little more color because you have to oxidize the tea a little bit longer. It's also called fermentation, oxidization, or fermentation. That means the same thing. But you have to be very, very conscious and very particular about the oxidization time during that period. If you overstep the mark, the teas tend to get bitter. It'll get more color, but it'll get bitter. But if you time it right and do the oxidation perfectly, it would give us an excellent flavor. The typical muscatel Darjeeling character, which is remarkable. That's why it's unique. It's called the champagne of teas. Good Darjeeling tea is called the champagne of teas for that reason. And it's expensive tea. Those are expensive teas, but people are willing to pay the price because of the caliber of the tea. And it's in small quantities, available in small quantities only. The first flush tea is the smallest amount. Second flush tea, there is more of that. And after that, there is even more of that. But still, Darjeeling, the district of Darjeeling, has tea bushes that are very, very old. And they don't want to replant those bushes because they will lose the character. For that reason, it's in short supply. Therefore, one of the reasons it's more expensive. So here's 5 minutes brewing time, and we are ready to try the tea. And gently take the infuser out. Now, what can I tell about the leaf that is in this infuser? Yes, it's wet leaf. And what color should it be? Usually the color that is attributed to the infused leaf is a coppery color. It's hard to see it through this camera with this camera, but later I will open the blinds and get more sunlight into this room. Then perhaps you can see it better. But right now we are ready to taste the tea, and I will use this teacup here. There we are. Again, as in an earlier segment, I said I like to use glassware because for this reason, that it emits a beautiful color, and it's certainly a nice experience to have a beautiful color in the cup and also in the pot. And this is what it looks like. So I'm going to now open the shades and get more sunlight into this room so that you can actually see what the golden color of this tea, what it looks like. Here we are. Well, the sun went down, so it's not as bright as it should be, but still you can see the difference. Again, an excellent color, golden color, and a touch reddish, and that comes from the Keemun tea itself. So what shall we do next? Of course, we must taste the tea. And here it is. Beautiful. Excellent cup of tea. It's nice because it has a unique flavor. The combination of Keemun tea and Darjeeling tea. And that is very unique. I don't think there are many companies that have tried this blend. As I said, I did this about 10 or 15 years ago, and I have loved it ever since. It's one of my favorite cups of tea. When you're drinking tea, it's okay to slurp a little bit, like wine tasting. The reason for that is that you're sucking in air at the same time as taking in the liquid. That activates the nerve endings in your mouth to enhance the flavor. So slurping is very common among tea tasters, and even if you're not a professional tea taster, it is totally acceptable to slurp a little bit. Well, not if you're having high tea with a group of ladies, that you wouldn't do, but right now. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.